Hello, thank you for joining. Let's give other people a few minutes to join so that we can begin our today's class where we'll be looking at advanced array methods and ECMAScript 6 concepts. So as we wait for others, there are people who are new to programming and they are asking where they can get previous content for the classes that we've already had. So the material is present on our YouTube channel on the playlist. We have a playlist for HTML and CSS, and then we have another playlist for the JavaScript concepts. So if you are new to programming, you can follow along in those tutorials, and you can also visit our website. That is KamandeDevHub.com. So you can visit the website. And maybe for the purposes of explaining to those new members who are completely new to programming, can explain some of what we use apart from Chrome. So we are using this KamandeDevHub platform, going through HTML and CSS, and now we are in JavaScript. And for the code editor, if you are new to programming and you're wondering the code to use, we are using VS Code. So you can just type VS Code download. Then it will take you to the page, to the official page for Visual Studio Code. So you open the first link that opens on your browser. It's loading, so as it loads, okay, the page fails to, let's see. Okay, so let's pick the Visual Studio. 3 service unavailable. What's wrong with my internet? So you can download VS Code at the official VS Code page. Click the links. So select the first one. See whether it opens the VS Code. But basically you're supposed to download the VS Code. Let me try Chrome because I'm using a different browser. And this one gives us challenges. So we do VS Code download, and then you download the installer. This failed. I think it must be a network issue. So you click on and it will redirect you to VS Code page, and then you select the version you want depending on the operating system of your machine. Two more minutes so that we can begin. So service unavailable. Why? This one should be opening it's the same issue. I don't know whether it's the services that are down or it's my network. All the pages or the browsers are returning service unavailable. Oh, actually it has opened. Now depending on your device, pick whether you're on Windows, whether you're using any Ubuntu or Kali Linux. You can select on a Mac, And then, for example, I'm on Windows, so you select the installer you want, the x64 installer. I'll just click on the Windows and then it will start downloading automatic. You can see it has started downloading, but because I have it, I will stop the download. And then after installing that, you'll be set to go. We'll be talking about other tools and libraries that we'll be using throughout this course, especially when we come to React and Node.js. We'll require npm, but we'll talk about installing npm, then setting up Node when we come there. So for today's class, we are going to talk about we're going to talk about these JavaScript intermediate concepts on arrays. That is array method. For that, I want to maybe finish on a few things that we started on Monday. So let me share my screen and so let's create a new file. Delete these because I'm assuming. So let's say we are talking, let's create a file on JavaScript arrays, or let's just call it lesson 2. Lesson2.js. We name JavaScript file with the extension of .js. So I want to explain a few concepts on arrays before we move to array methods. Arrays, and then I'll also talk about objects in a nutshell, and after that we'll talk about array methods that we have. So we said an array is declared using the brackets. So let's say we have students that way, and we said an array stores value in continuous index. That is, they are zero-based index, so starting from index 0. And we said arrays can take any data types. They can take numbers, they can take objects, they can take other arrays. It could be an array of arrays, and so they take dynamic values. So for example, we can say an array of numbers, which has those numbers. So we can have an array of strings. Let's say we have fruits and keywords. We define objects using the curly braces. So for example, and I want you to note that array are separated by comma, and when we have an array of strings are separated by either single quotes or double quotes. So you must take that into consideration. And then, okay, sorry. So for example, we say we have a student. This is a note. So we say they store name, data in form of value, in form of key value. So name, it could be Kennedy. Kamande. Then let's say maybe age could be 24. And then let's say we are storing a student email. Could be, that is my email. And let's say we also have, so also I want you to note that also an object can have We can have a nested object in which an object can have another object, which could contain an array. So for example, we have an address. Okay, address. So in the address could be an object. So let's say we have country, that is Kenya. Okay, we have city, around Nairobi. So I'm around Nairobi, and street, you could say Juja Road, etc. It could contain all the fields of an address. And so let's say we are storing student units, and we also have the course. So let's have a course here. I was taking electronics and computer engineering. And finally, we could say we have units. And then for the units, we have them as an array of units, and each unit will be an object also with a unit title, a code, and the scores the student got for this. So we have, okay, sorry, we are storing them as an object. So with the title, we say we had digital electronics, and then we had the code, could be EEE 2301. And then we had marks. Let's say I had like 68. Excuse. Then we have all the different units maybe. So let's just autocomplete. So we have the digital electronics, we have microprocessors and microcontrollers. We have control systems. So those then we had that one, communication systems, etc. So that's how we store an object, or that's how we define an object in JavaScript. So we talked about accessing the elements of an array, and we said they are let me open my terminal. Oh, okay, it's already open. So I'm still giving members some time to join. For those who haven't yet joined, that's why I'm going a bit slowly, but let's hope they'll join us along the way. So let's proceed. Yeah, so that's how we store an object, and we've seen an array can contain different values. It can be an array of objects, it can be an array of arrays. So let's say, for example, we have other numbers, and this one can be an array of arrays. So we have number 1, 2, 3. Then we also have all the way. So we can store different values in an array. And we say the way we access the array, if let's say, for example, we want to log orange in the fruits, and so we say console.log fruits, and then we want to log orange. We said they are 0 index, so 0, 1, 2. So that will be at index 2. And then let's say we want to log from our nested array. We want to log, let's say, number 8. So each array will be first index. We do like this. So numbers. Okay, we should have, let's say, these numbers 2 to avoid some conflict. So numbers 2. And then we want to access to access the third, this will be the third element because it will be calculated individually. We're saying we want to access number 8. So we'll count from 0, 1, 2. And then in that array, 8 is index 0, 1. So here we will return 8. That's how we access array elements. And then for an object, we said we can access it using the dot operator or the bracket notation. So you can check that in the previous videos if you were not in the class. This was just a reminder. And the way we run Node, the way we run JavaScript is using Node. So I'll run this using Node lesson2.js. And you can see we've logged orange and 8 as we intended. So after that, I wanted to talk now about array methods. As discussed in the platform, the different methods that we have. So we have a few important array methods that are very useful in our real-world projects. We have the map method, which transforms each element into an array. We'll talk about the different scenarios where we use them. We have the filter, which filters element based on a condition. We have reduce, which reduces array to a single value. And we have forEach, which iterates through each element. And then we have find, that returns the first element that matches a condition. And we have sort, that sorts the elements of the array. So for example, let's say we wanted to have, let me uncomment this. So we have we have map, we have map, filter. These are the ones I want to talk about. We have map, filter, reduce, forEach, and find index. So let's look at different scenarios we will use each of these elements. So let's say, for example, we start with the first one on the site. We have the map. This one now transforms an element into, transform each element into an array. So for example, let's say we want to double these numbers. We want to double by multiplying each element by 2. So let's say, okay, let me do this to avoid confusion. I'll cut that. And maybe that we can reuse that. We'll need to reuse it at the bottom there. We have, let's say we want to double these numbers. So we can say const double, and then we do a numbers dot map, and then each number, and then we are multiplying the number by 2. Okay, seeing also concepts I didn't introduce. And I think before we talk through these, it's important we talk about them. This is about functions. Sorry, I thought I covered them yesterday, but let me briefly cover them, and we talk about the arrow functions. So let's first talk about that. I will revisit that. Let's first of all talk about functions. And we have different type of functions. We have a normal function. We declare function using the name function. We have a function to add two numbers a and b. We said we pass parameters to the functions. We pass parameters to the function, and then when we call them, we pass in the argument. So, and this function returns the sum between two numbers. So for example, now when we want to invoke or call this function, we'll call add, and then pass in any arguments, and then so we can assign that we can say const result is equals add. We call the function, and then we pass in two numbers, and we can console log the result. So this is a normal function. So that is a normal function. We had callbacks, and a callback is a function called inside another function. So let's say, for example, function greet, then we'll have the callback here. So we can say console log we just welcome, and then we'll call our callback here. So you've seen we passed the callback as a function to this, and then we can call greet, and then pass in a function that as an argument that console logs, let's say my name, Kennedy. So if we run this, let's see what happens. Okay, let's see the error. Oh, I'm calling the wrong function. So node less2.js. So you can say first we were logging the result here from add. That was supposed to be 12. And then the first function, so when we call greet and pass in the argument as this anonymous function, we'll talk about anonymous functions, which are functions that do not have a name, because we said we declare a function using the keyword function. So it first runs the greet and then console log welcome, and then the first. Now the callback runs again, returning the Kennedy. And the reason why I wanted to introduce the callbacks is because we have now a concept of arrow functions, and we majorly use them as callbacks. in many times or in many applications. So an arrow function is declared using the opening brackets and then that, and then okay, what am I missing? We can assign them let's assign them a variable. So we can say const greet or const let's say const visitor, and then we'll pass in the parameter of name. It takes the name and then console.log. Hello. And then name. So let's uncomment this. Let's uncomment our first examples there, and we call this. So we'll just call it the name, the way we just call other functions, and we can call John and see what it logs. Oh, sorry about that. So let's see. Okay, spelling. Yeah, didn't save before updating. So you can see it console logs hello John. Okay, so those are the different types of functions we have, and we will come across more as we continue with this. As we continue with this bootcamp, because we'll be using them more often in both React and Node.js. So let's proceed. Here we were going to double each number in our first array. So we assigned that to, and then we mapped through the number multiplying each element by 2. And then we can console log double and see what it returns. So you can see it has returned each element multiplied by 2. That's an array. We had 1 times 2, 2, all the way up to 10 times 2, 20. So that's the map, and it returns a new array. Like you must remember that it returns a new element stroke array, and we can use it in so many scenarios. We'll look at them in our next lesson when we'll be building an entire e-commerce project using these concepts that we learned today. So let's talk about the next one I want to talk about is forEach. And forEach, we've seen it iterates through each element in an array. So let's say, for example, and I need you to take or to look at instances in which you need to use forEach and map, because people oftenly misuse them or misinterpret the conditions in which they might be used. So let's look at the forEach. We've seen it iterates through an array and perform an action on each element. So let's say we want to, you could have also used forEach, but let's see what it returns. or another use case of the forEach. Let's say you have let's say you have an array of products. So let's say we have an array of different products. We have name, have price and category, have another one, have name, price and category. We have another one, have name, price and category, and then we have another one, name, price and category. Good. So okay, let me do that. So that is our array of different products with the name, price, product and category. And we want to explain the forEach method. And one way in which we use them is displaying elements on a web page. Let's say it could be on our blog page, for example. We could have had different blogs being fetched from the backend. So we can do a products dot forEach, and then for these array methods, they normally take a callback. We've just talked about the callbacks, which takes the argument for product, and then so we'll console log product dot name, or let's just console log the entire product details. We'll talk about string retlevels, the ones that I use, the flashes you see. So we could have the product, can log the product.name, then could have the cost in dollars. So product dot price, and then we could have category, so product dot category. You'll see that we access variables in JavaScript when we use the string literal using the $sign and then braces and then the name of the array of the field we want to access. So this one now will iterate through each product and console log all of them. So let's see. You can see it's console log each product as an entity on its own. Let's say, and note the difference between doing this. So let's say products. Okay. Let's console log all the products. Okay. And see what that returns. You can see the difference between the first and when we console log the entire product, it returns the entire array with all the elements in, but for each method returns the product individually. Okay, so that's the way this helps us navigate through the different fields in an array. That was there. For each, we can look at the map. No, not the map. We can look at the filter method. And then this returns a new array with the elements that pass the test. That is based on a specific condition. So we can return the elements in the electronic category. So const electronics equals to products dot filter. And then we say they take the arrow function as a callback. And then, so we want to filter, excuse a minute, okay. Hello? Hello? Poa sana. Sorry about that. Okay, let's continue. A minute. So let's proceed. One moment, please. I confirm something for someone. Okay, so we were here. So we are going to filter the product based on category. So product, and then we'll check the product dot category is equals to electronics. So this one now will return all the products in the electronics category. And then let's say also another scenario, we want to filter products by price. These are use cases for which we can use. And let's say we want to find the most expensive product. Then we'll do a products dot filter, and then we pass in the callback, the arrow function, and then we return the product for which the price is above $100. Is above $100. So let's console log this. The electronics, and then console log the expensive product. We had, let's uncomment that. We are in the filter method. So you can see it returns electronics, we have the laptop and the phone, and the expensive product, we have the laptop and the phone also. What about, so that's how you can use them. And look at their use cases, for example, in e-commerce platforms or the blogs that we had. We had a search. So the filter can be used in the search, and also in the search for an e-commerce platform. We'll look into an e-commerce platform tomorrow, and then you'll see all these in practice. So let's now look at the reduce. Now this one method returns a single based value on the array, like it is used to convert all the array into a single value. So let's say we want to calculate the total price of the, for example, in our product array. So we will do const total price, or total, the total price for all our products will be products dot reduce. Sorry, and then we pass in also an arrow function with the total and the product. So we will return the total plus the product dot price, and then we pass in an initial argument of 0. So let's console log the total price. So that's how we calculate the total price of the products we have, and look at application of these. Let's say, for example, in a cart system. So let's say the application of these are in a cart system, in an e-commerce, or let's say calculating student marks, etc., or calculating total sales, etc. For example, on our student object, we can calculate the total marks, the average grade, and then calculate the grade. So let's continue with this. Okay, the other method we had was the okay, we've talked about the forEach. The other method that we had was the find and sort. We've talked about map, filter, reduce, forEach. So find now returns an element, or the first element that matches a condition. So let's say we had, let's use a different example of students. Okay, and then we had our array. Then we had different students with the ID, and then name, marks, etc. Okay, we had other students, also more students. Okay, we are just auto-generating this to save on time. And then Alice, so let's say we want to find a student by name or by ID. So we can say find a student by name, but name is not a unique identifier, so we use unique identifiers. Fine, so we can say const student is equals to students dot find. Then it also takes in the function, and then so we return the student whose ID matches our ID. So we could say, yeah, we're giving it ID. No, okay, let's just leave it as it were. And then and so let's say we had an ID here, or let's define this as a function instead. So we can say function find student by ID, then we pass in the argument for ID, and then student will be student dot find student whose ID matches the ID we passed in the question. So return student dot ID will be equals to the ID that we are passing. So let's call this function find student by ID with an ID of 4. Okay. So we forgot to console log the student returned. So also the const is not defined well. So that's how we use the find. And which other one have we left? The sort. So for sort, it's used to arrange two numbers in order. So let's say, for example, we had, let's say you had calculated the marks for student and you want to rank them from top to bottom. We'll have a function for calculating the marks, and then after you calculate the marks, you sort all the marks from the top to bottom or from the bottom to top. So we could have const numbers. So here we are talking about the sort. So let's have the const unsorted numbers. We have 98, all that, just a bunch of random numbers. Okay, that will be a bit long to follow. Let's look at number between 10 and 100, that one. And so the way we sort numbers, so we can have const sorted numbers. We're just assigning this to a variable. We do the unsorted numbers dot sort, and then it also takes a callback AB, and then to sort from largest to smallest, we return A minus B. That is in ascending order. So console.log sorted numbers. And the default for this sort is it sorts elements alphabetically. So for example, if we did after passing this, we call callback. And what if we had called the sort directly? So this is sorted number 1, and so sorted number 1. So if we had called that directly, so const sorted numbers 2 without having to call or without passing the sort. So let's do that, and then we run this. So look at the sorted number after passing callback. It has arranged them from 8, 12, 36, all the way from smallest to largest. That is in ascending order. And without passing the callback, it didn't arrange them. It just gives them some random sorting, which is not correct. So you need to take care of that, and you need to pass in the arguments in the arrow function and then do this. If we wanted to sort them in descending, I want you to note the difference. So look at the difference. It arranges them from 90, that is from the largest to the smallest. That is how we sort in descending order. So that is the explanation for our array methods. And then let's talk about briefly, we've looked at objects and how we define them. We can define one last thing, that is we can define, so let me do away with this and start here. So we can define classes. And we say classes are blueprints for creating objects. And we have different properties that are brought about by classes. We have encapsulation, which is hiding implementation of data. We have inheritance, and we have polymorphism and abstraction. But I just wanted us to talk about classes and how we instantiate them. So we could have, for example, class student, and so we can have the constructor. We declare the constructor. So we can have the ID, name, course for our student, and then so this we use this dot ID equals to ID, then this dot name equals to name, and this dot course equals to course. So objects can have properties or characteristics, methods, which are just functions of inside an object. So we could have, and the way we call a function, so let's say, for example, greet, we declare them like this, and then you just declare the function, and then you pass in your code. So let's say this one logs the name of the student, like the student introduces themselves. So my name is you access the name, and I am studying. Okay, and then so we could have, you could declare different methods, and we'll just access methods just the same way we do access other object properties. So let me not do a lengthy object. So for example, now to use, we've said this is a blueprint. Instead of the way when we were creating an object, declare we had to declare what we had to declare object for each and every. So for you to instantiate or create an object from the blueprint, we could say student1 is equals the new student, and then you'll pass in the arguments. So Kennedy, and then the course was let's say software engineering. And if you want to access a method inside an object, so let's first create that. So let's access student okay one, and if you want to access a method inside that or the greet method, you could just call the object dot greet. That's it. So let's do. Okay, I hope you people can hear me. I don't know whether I'm audible or I've been talking to myself. So we can have that one. So not you can see it logs that student one, then it logs the function inside that. Look at the different methods a function could have, let's say, or different functions a method could have, or different properties a method could have. And these objects and classes help us to map real world object or real world things in and represent them in a programmable way. So that was on object and classes. So in the next class, I'm going to introduce a few concepts on so the time is gone. We look at DOM manipulation. We'll introduce now how HTML and CSS and JavaScript connect. And then after that, we look at creating and appending elements, and then we look at events and what events are. We'll discuss about JavaScript being event driven. And then lastly, we'll create the task project. And then after that, we will now in our last class on JavaScript, we'll introduce now the ES6 features. That is, we talked about the let and const. We've talked about arrow functions. I've mentioned the template literals on a nutshell. We'll talk about the spread and rest operator, and then destructuring an object. So, and then we'll talk about module imports, and we'll also talk about asynchronous JavaScript in our last lesson before we do our project. I've introduced the concept of classes. We've defined the classes and the different methods. And then maybe you can check at inheritance and how classes inherit properties and methods from other classes. Lastly, we'll talk about handling, that is tomorrow. We'll tackle these, and then the coming week we'll do the project. I'm seeing we are moving at a slower pace because the 1 hour for the session is not enough, and we need to cover quite some concepts because I don't want to assume any knowledge of these concepts, so that you can be comfortable around the full stack. So bye bye, and thank you for your time.